afternoon. Welcome to From the Hill. I'm your host, State Representative Jim Arcero, and this is our inaugural first show for 2015. I'm very excited to be back here in the studio, and we have a good friend here today, my friend and ours, Joe Diamond, who's a Westford resident and the Executive Director of MASSCAP. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I just got sworn in about a month ago, and it's very busy on Beacon Hill. The governor has filed his version of the state budget, and currently right now the House of Representatives is moving forward to filing their budget, which will probably be released in April. We are now on Friday the 13th, Joe, in March, and we anticipate in the next 3 weeks that the governor's budget will be dissected by the House, and we'll have our opportunity to file a version of our budget in which we'll have debate, most likely at the end of April. I was reappointed, which I'm very proud to serve on the Veterans Affairs Committee, the Higher Education Committee, and the Committee on Revenue. But today's show, we're going to focus a little bit on MASSCAP, and that's the Massachusetts Association for Community Action. Joe Diamond is a friend of the show. He's been on my show, I think every year I've had a show, I think since 2009 when I was first sworn into office. I think soon after that, Joe, you've come in to talk a little bit about your organization. And I'm very excited that you're on to talk a little bit about what MASSCAP is up to, what your priorities are, and how to get involved.
Well, once again, thank you for having me. And I have been with you every year since you took office. And that was a great opportunity because I know how committed you are to the kinds of services that we provide and to the people that we serve, the services that help folks stabilize their lives, vulnerable families, and then seek economic mobility and independence. Also, I want to say that it's a pleasure to be on your show, having worked with you before you took office, and now that you're in office, that we're very happy in Westford and surrounding communities to have you as our representative on Beacon Hill.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for that, and for this opportunity. You're right; it is a very interesting year, and it's on a lot of levels. It's become so. I'll just take a quick step back. MASSCAP is the professional association of the 23 community action agencies operating in Massachusetts. They were founded 50 years ago, and this is a big year for us. It's the 50th anniversary of the War on Poverty, and we've been taking a look at that. It's a very meaningful year for us, and I'll get into it in a second. A symposium that we sponsored and held at the JFK Library recently, where we took a very long look at what's worked since then to help people achieve self-sufficiency, what we can build on, what the situation is in Massachusetts in terms of poverty and mobility, and then where we can go from here together to continue to address inequality and create opportunity. But before I get to that, I did want to talk a little bit about community action agencies, what they do, and then some of our priorities, if that's okay with you. And we're here in Westford, very close to Lowell, where one of our agencies is Community Teamwork in Lowell, is a community action agency serving Lowell and surrounding communities, including Westford, and provides a really good representation of services that are provided across the state by our members. We serve 650,000 people, serving every community, folks who are experiencing any kind of challenge or vulnerability. The largest program is fuel assistance, which serves about 200,000 households, helping people cover costs. But our programs really run the gamut from fuel assistance to weatherization, to early education and care, including Head Start, to asset development programs like financial literacy, earned income tax credit access, also housing and homelessness programs to prevent homelessness, but also shelters. We also create affordable housing, training programs, job training programs, adult basic education programs, programs for the elderly, and many more, up to about 75 different programs, along with advocacy and education, and we often go to the State House. So for us, as I said, this year is an important year. Our priorities this year include fuel assistance, resources for fuel assistance, resources to support the early education and care system on a couple of levels. Resources to address homelessness, resources for housing to address homelessness, as well as the earned income tax credit. So if I could start at the top, the one that's perhaps the most pressing given where we are in the season, in the year, is fuel assistance. And we spoke about this last year, and I know that we sent a letter to you and your colleagues. We look forward to the House budget. That's really a very important document. Every year for the past 11 or so, we've asked for a mid-year adjustment to fuel assistance to bring in state resources to add to the federal resources which people receive. We serve 200,000 households across the state with fuel assistance. That is helping people cover their cost of heating oil or electricity or natural gas or other fuel sources. And New England winters have always been cold. This year, both cold and snowy, almost a record year for most communities.
I don't know how I don't know how we're getting through it, to be honest with you. I mean, how many times were you on your roof this year, Joe?
Well, I was there once, and then ever since then, other people have helped me.
Oh
with
my
that because
goodness,
I'm not a pro.
it's been a tough winter.
Yeah.
It's been a tough winter, and when you think about people who are living below the poverty level, and people that we certainly people that we wouldn't expect are living below the poverty level, fuel assistance is incredibly important, especially not every winter it is, but this winter and even more important because of just the record amounts of snow and the issues people had in home maintenance, but really has been the cold as well.
You know, the points you make are really important. People that we serve are making, for a family of four, about $48,000 a year. We know from the study that I alluded to that we looked at in November at the symposium, most of the people that we serve work. Wages have just not kept up with productivity since the middle 70s. And so people are working, doing all the right things, yet still it's so hard to get by. And that's where fuel assistance comes in. Fuel assistance and food stamps and other programs. In terms of fuel assistance, you're right, covering that cost is really hard. The most immediate concern is for the 50,000 households across the state that use home heating oil. Home heating oil companies, because they're small businesses, we totally understand cannot deliver unless the resource is available to pay them. And so we need to try to help folks get that resource. This year, people who were heating with oil were out of their benefit by the middle of February. Folks who heat with electricity and natural gas, a little different. Their bills are going higher and higher. They cannot be shut off until the end of March. But costs continue to be high. So we've asked the legislature, and I know that, and we've almost continuously update our legislators on the situation. And we asked the legislators to again consider a mid-year adjustment of about $20 million of state resources to help folks get through the rest of the winter by covering fuel assistance. The long-term goal is for a fuel assistance line item to be added to the budget so that in FY16 and going forward, there will be a fuel assistance resource, $20 million, to add to the 140 that comes from the federal government, which by the way has dropped a lot from 200. So that at the beginning of the season, we know what the benefit level is going to be, and we can access it right away. So that's one of our priorities, and I appreciate what you say, because fuel assistance, along with food stamps, along with Medicare and Medicaid, along with the earned income tax credit and other programs, have been programs over the years that experts have said have really helped keep people from poverty. In fact, the study that we did, the Mass Budget and Policy Center, which did the study for us, said that in Massachusetts alone, about 840,000 people each year, because of those programs, are kept from poverty or helped out of poverty because they do get help with their early education and care costs, with fuel assistance, with insurances, and so on. And so that's important to note because we know how to do it. The challenge, the problem is that at the beginning of the war on poverty, poverty levels were very high, close to 20%. But when those programs were enacted, along with the fact that wages kept up with productivity and wages were helping people to get by, poverty dropped to about 12%. That actually has stayed steady over the years. So we haven't been able to reduce it any further since then. And that again has to do with the way that wages have not increased. In fact, if wages had increased along the lines of productivity, the average wage earner will be making about $14,000
Right.
more. So wages become a very important problem. So when you talk about wages, you talk about, well, how do you address that? It's a structural issue. Things like the Earned Income Tax Credit are really important because that is another program that adds to income. The way that works is people go to a free tax site, which is offered at CTI and 21 of our other agencies, and they receive help with filing their tax and mostly qualify for this tax credit, and other tax credits, which bring back between $1,000 and $5,000 to households.
And I know this is something that Governor Baker actually has filed a piece of legislation to start this debate and this discussion about instituting the Earned Income Tax Credit moving forward. It's
interesting. The Governor, Speaker of the House, and the Senate President have all talked about the challenges of inequality. The Senate President in his opening address, and we know the Speaker and also the Governor, and then the Governor has talked about doubling the state's Earned Income Tax Credit. So the state's Earned Income Tax Credit is keyed to the federal, and if, for example, if you receive $1,000 from the federal government, you receive an additional $150 now, but with the Governor's proposal, and hopefully that'll be something that would resonate with the House and the Senate, you receive $300. So it's a really important step, and I think it's in some sense symbolic of kind of an understanding of that there are certain programs that work and let's build on them.
Right, and especially programs that work, Joe, that don't necessarily get caught up in partisan bickering and right. really a give and take, on one side of the aisle or the other. I think it's one that Governor Baker as well as the legislature, in one form or another, can agree upon. It's
a straightforward piece and it makes a lot of sense, and we're hopeful that it'll continue through the legislature. That one.
And the budget, you were speaking a little bit about how important the fuel assistance line item would be. Now I understand that having a line item, you could actually have some predictability of funding. That's probably the most important.
For us, that's probably the most important, and then it's matched with the agency's abilities to get going even before the federal fiscal year starts in November or October 1st.
Certainly.
But that predictability is really good because say you're a family and that when the season starts that you'll have, and for us the highest benefit level is $1,000. You'll have $1,000 to cover your heating costs. Or for people who get oil, actually, it's $1,000. But if it's $800, but then you might get another $200 or you might get another $100, it's harder and harder to budget. So that if we can tell people right up front, like any of us want to be able to know and to budget. So we're asking for that kind of simplicity. So that's what we're hoping for. And you and your colleagues have been incredibly sensitive over the years. And so we're saying, let's learn from the mid-year adjustments. And let's make this.
Now, this has been how many years now at MASSCAP for you, as executive
Since 1992. Yeah, for 23 years.
So 23 years. Has this been the worst winter you've ever seen as executive director?
It's been, for a lot of reasons. One, the winter itself was tough. The federal
we're not out of the woods yet. It's still it's
still
melting, but it's we're getting out of it.
And this month, on record, has actually been pretty snowy. So
yeah, certainly.
But as far as the cost of heating is actually has risen since then, so much and the federal resource has diminished. So it's like this perfect storm this year: high prices, bad weather, and we're looking at a situation where people are still in need. So
I think we were talking. Was it last year? I think we were talking a little bit about the difficulties of predictability with the budget, but also what was going on in the federal government with sequester and a lot of the challenges it had in the federal level too. Have you seen that on the federal level now? Is it are you finding? I know that obviously it's always a challenge to make sure you get adequate funding for the people of the Commonwealth, especially for fuel assistance. But how's the challenge fiscally and financially been for working with the federal government?
Relatively speaking, it's better because there's less instability. We still believe that fuel assistance could be higher on the federal level. We also want to see weatherization resources a little bit higher. The core block grant that underwrites kind of the core services that we provide, called the Community Services Block Grant, is now more stable because the president in his budgets until now has virtually eliminated it. But this year his budget it's fully funded.
Mm-hmm.
So that stability or that understanding that we will not have to kind of fight for that helps us to focus on other things. So the levels we are really hopeful would go higher. The vagaries of the federal process aren't quite as bad as last year. No problem with early cutoff of resources or sequestration right now.
Right.
So, yeah, so we're looking forward to more stability.
So you some of the priorities this year for MASSCAP also include hunger and homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
So take me through some of the programs you offer, MASSCAP offers, and some of the challenges you have moving forward.
As far as that's concerned, that's been a big priority of ours, and we're part of a coalition called Building Blocks Coalition that's supportive of a variety of line items within both the housing budget and the human services budget that support helping people who are at risk of homelessness and help people who are homeless, and then helping them leave shelter and stay in apartments or rental situations. So the top priority for us is the Mass Rental Voucher Program, which provides people with resources so that they can be in stable, affordable housing. Another priority for us is to work with your colleagues and others on resources that would help us to do what we've done for years, which is kind of case management, job training, and even legal services to prevent people, to help people before they're at extreme risk for homelessness. So if they're experiencing, say, a problem with paying the rent or some other challenge, we would know about that early, and then we could work with those folks with wraparound services like fuel assistance and other kinds of services, but also work with landlords and even work in the courts to make sure that they don't have to leave their homes. And so that's a kind of a policy approach which we and others support, and hopefully that'll get even more resources in the budget. I think the governor has proposed a $20 million line item for that, and I know that the House has always been interested in that kind of early intervention because it, and in the end, saves us resources.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more expensive to provide shelter to somebody than to keep them in their homes.
Now, for our region, you sort of alluded to the fact that Community Teamwork, Inc. Is certainly the resource for Greater Lowell and for this area. So
Mm.
how would one reach out to Community Teamwork, and would they administer a whole host of these sort of services for individuals in terms of hunger and homelessness, fuel assistance, housing? Would they kind of encompass a lot of those issues, Joe?
Yeah, they would. In fact, they're a really great agency to refer to when it comes to that. They're one of a few of our agencies that provides a comprehensive set
Mm-hmm.
of services to help people stay in their homes or to avoid homelessness. They have a division that creates housing and manages housing. They also have a very strong division that works on prevention issues. And they also have another program that helps people secure jobs so that they can remain stable. Very comprehensive approach. So just by calling the agency, go to communityteamworkinc.org and you can find resources and the phone number if people are in need. Full service agency, fuel assistance, WIC, food stamps, workforce training. So they are a great resource.
And I know the Westford Senior Center does have a lot of that information available, not only on their website for people who are watching at home, but also if you were to stop in at the Westford Senior Center, at the Cameron Senior Center, they would have a lot of that information, so people can access it. And I think sometimes it's very often people aren't aware of the resources they have,
Mm-hmm.
in the Greater Lowell community. So it's very important.
And I know they've got a great food pantry there at the Cameron Senior Center.
They certainly do.
Always very important. That kind of local programming is something that we must
Something I want to
remember.
talk a little bit about is asset development. This is so very important, especially when it comes to financial literacy. You have been a leader on this issue for the 23 years that you've been the executive director. Take me through a little bit about how asset development can certainly help families in need, but give people the opportunity to move forward with careers in life.
The folks at Brandeis University at the Institute in Assets and Social Policy, the Heller School, first started talking to all of us about this idea of providing people with resources that would help them in a very long-term way develop assets. A lot of us have the opportunity to work with family members or don't face challenges such that there are no savings or that we're living paycheck to paycheck. It goes back actually to the GI Bill.
Right.
That because you served, and for that reason alone, you were entitled to resources for education or resources for a home. It was a way to help people build assets who just lacked sometimes inherited assets. But for that little bit of help, so many people, my father included, were able to pursue those things, pursue those assets. And so this programming came to be, and for us it's got three legs to the stool. It's financial literacy, it's the earned income tax credit, and then match savings accounts to help people buy homes or to invest in education or to invest in a small business. And we try to integrate it as much as possible in all that we do. So across our network, every agency virtually provides financial literacy education. Virtually every agency does earned income tax credit, and about half are involved in this match savings account. It's not just restricted to that, it's really more of a concept too, that it's important to think about what we provide as a long-term investment. So job training is kind of an asset development piece as well. When it comes to the earned income tax credit, because that's been recognized as one of the most effective anti-poverty programs and is now a little more popular, we help our agencies to do it. It brings in so much money to the community. Just as an example, our network, there are a lot of free tax sites, which you call VITA sites, volunteer income tax assistance sites, across the state. But our agencies, our 22 that provide it, serve about 15,000 families and individuals to get their earned income tax credit and get their taxes prepared for free. That brings in over $30 million to the Commonwealth. The return on investment, depending on what you're using in terms of the resource we provide people to cover the costs of running a VITA site, it's volunteer driven, but you still have to cover those costs, is about between 200 and 400 to 1. So it's an incredibly efficient program as well. But then when you combine it with services, connect people to banks for bank accounts, to Head Start, to fuel assistance, it becomes like a super volunteer income tax assistance site, and it becomes part of the service integration piece that's so important at community action agencies as multi-service sites.
I know certainly for financial literacy, it's something that over the years has been filed by a number of legislators, a number of policy and advocacy groups has put forward an agenda to at least have it as a discussion as part of the school's curriculums. So very important to get young people at an early age understanding how to budget and how to effectively deal with their assets moving forward, especially with student debt issues.
It's so critical.
I know I was on the subcommittee for student debt in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and it was a subcommittee from the Higher Education Committee. One of the key points essentially was getting your arms around financial literacy and having some sort of a form of financial literacy in the curriculum for 351 cities and towns and the schools.
It's a really great point. You remind me of some work that we did in a commission, and one of the recommendations was providing financial literacy across a variety of venues. So in the schools where you have these teachable moments, and we ourselves do a financial literacy toolkit for case managers. So when they're talking to people about their early education and care or about staying in the home, we also know that our case managers are going to find opportunities to talk about basic banking, basic budgeting, the importance of good credit. And all those things come into play in that context. It also comes into play in classroom settings. But we know that if you can impart this information when you're doing your taxes, for example, encouraging people to save when they receive their EITC, to invest in a savings bond or to pay off debt, we know that's a lifelong thing. And in fact, people that work in our agencies have benefited personally from the kind of training that they're prepared to do themselves.
And the importance of understanding, interest rates and loans, and when you're going to, certainly, I think in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the second highest the second highest cost for a family is the cost of higher education. And certainly it's one of the fastest growing debts over the last 10 years.
Well, the point that you make about education is so critical. One of the findings in the report is that the way that we continue to address poverty and the way that we continue to help deal with wage gap is, whereas many years ago high school education was what was needed.
Right.
Now it's college education, and
Right.
so if we could make it emboldening and enhancing the public system, but also making so people can understand the way they can finance education is so important.
The second highest, consumer debt in per household nationally is next to a home mortgage is student debt
Yeah,
for higher education.
it's incredible, and I know that that's become important, and it's something that I know that you all are thinking about and concerned about.
Certainly.
And for us too, we recommend that. Of course, it goes without saying almost, but one of our agencies actually ran and then spun off a college, the Urban College in Boston. So there's a recognition in our network that we need to sync up with higher education, secondary.
Well, we have quite an ambitious discussion here, an agenda. I know that MASSCAP does wonderful work. Joe, the work that you've done as a leader,
thank you.
For community action throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it certainly is. It's been quite an honor to have you on the show, every year to talk a little bit about what, the great work that you do. And I really thank you for coming on. And I'd like you to come on again, because we're only at the tip of the iceberg, certainly, on some of the things that you guys do. But I look forward, as we move through the budget process to working with you and my colleagues to, find solutions to some of the issues that you're working on.
It's our pleasure to be here. I always like the opportunity and the chance to chat with you. And we will be visiting you and your colleagues for sure in the coming months.
Well, I appreciate it, Joe. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming on my show today.
Thanks for the chance.
And I look forward to having you on again. For all the viewers back at home, my office hours will be printed in the Westford Eagle, the Littleton Independent, the Chelmsford Independent, and the Lowell Sun, as well as Westfordcat News, if I'm correct. So I look forward to seeing you in the show next time. And Joe, thank you very much for coming on my show, and look forward to seeing you.
My pleasure.